Hi, welcome to the Playing with Fire podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Spitulski. I'm an ex-firefighter. I'm currently a fire investigator. I've been doing it for about 25 years, and we are going to go into what we're calling the Eaton Fire. We're going to do a little background on it today and build into hopefully having an interview with a victim who lost their home and has gone through a lot of turmoil with the results of the Eaton Fire. So what I'm going to do today is give a little background on the Eaton Fire, just the facts and some understanding of where it stands today as far as what the general theories are for the investigation. I do have a little bit of knowledge on that direction. I'll just say, without giving away any secrets, I'll give what I can. So most of you probably remember the Eaton Fire. It happened on January 7th of this year. It was at the same time as the Palisades Fire. The Eaton Fire started later in the afternoon on January 7th. So the Palisades Fire started about 10:30 in the morning. It just took off and pulled a whole bunch of resources over to the west side of the valley, basically the Malibu area and the Palisades area. And then the Eaton Fire started at about 6:15 in the evening, which is on the other side of the valley, the eastern side of the valley, which is the San Gabriel Valley. And it was first observed at the base of some Southern Cal Edison transmission towers. Now, those transmission towers have become kind of the focus of all the investigations because of this video, one, and also the phone call that took place. The first 911 call came in from Midwick Drive and Altadena. There was a video that was recorded from an ARCO AM/PM that shows a flash up on the hillside and then a fire starting at the base of these towers. Now, the tower that everybody is interested in was a decommissioned or a circuit that was not in use, which makes this even more odd because if it's not in use, there's no energy to it. So the thought being, or what people are trying to understand, is how did this tower become energized when the circuit that the tower is holding up had no electricity in it, from the substation all the way to the tower, which is known as M16T1. That's the termination point. There were no wires that continued east from that point. But how did that tower become energized? How did the circuit become energized? And so that's what they're looking at right now. A little bit of background is it had threatened at one time over 28,000 structures. It burned down or destroyed more than 9,400 structures. I believe 19 people perished in this fire, and there were 9 firefighters injured. So what we're thinking the cost of it right now is somewhere around $10 billion just on this one fire. I have been down to that area, the Altadena area. My wife and I have driven through that neighborhood. Unbelievable, the destruction. It rips the heart right out of your chest. And then after the fire, there were mudslides because they got a lot of rain. So it's just one thing after another for that area, including the Palisades area. So what we'll do is we'll upload some photos and maybe a couple other graphs or something to kind of support what we're talking about. So to understand this fire, we need to look at the conditions. Why did this fire happen? Not just why did that tower become energized, but what were the conditions at the time? We already know that it was super dry. I think what most people don't know, unless they're living down there, are the Santa Ana winds that come through there. And this area specifically has a canyon that allows the air to really pick up speed and create some extreme conditions that aren't normal anywhere else. I mean, we're talking 80-mile-an-hour winds in some cases. And so that had a major contributing factor to the start of this fire. One of the theories being that the wind got some transmission lines rhythmatic, they made contact, and that's how our de-energized circuit became energized, as it made contact with another line. That's one theory. There was a weather condition that was posted by the National Weather Service talking about the extreme conditions. This was at least a day before. There were red flag warnings that were issued for that area, as well as the Palisades. It was all under these extreme conditions, starting on the 7th. And that was one of the biggest factors. Is this wasn't so much a wildfire. This was a urban fire driven by wind. It wouldn't have mattered if just one of the houses at the end of the street caught on fire. If they didn't jump on it quick enough, we would have had these conditions happen. We would have had embers being tossed, other houses catching on fire due to proximity, and then with the dry conditions, the single-digit humidity, the extreme wind, it was just pushing this fire all across that town. So we do have clocked wind speeds at the Bob Hope Airport at over 60 miles an hour. And that was what the biggest push was that had this fire take off. So I'm looking at a lot of history with this. When I look at a fire and try to understand a fire, I capture as much data off of the internet as possible. So I go back in historical time frame and talk about or look at the weather conditions, look at any warnings that were out beforehand, look at fuel moisture conditions, because all of the wildfire stuff, it has a lot to do with what the fuels are, the grasses, the trees, and things like that. So in this case, I would go back and I captured a lot of data as to what was happening at the time of the fire. And then I also start grabbing social media stuff, news reports, people's Facebook postings. A lot of information comes from social media and what people see, because everybody has a camera nowadays. And a lot of people will post the fire early on. And that's exactly what happened in this case. We had a couple that stepped out of their front door and had a video of this fire starting at the base of the tower. We also had the video, the closed circuit cameras at the ARCO AM/PM that people were able to grab that video. And it gave us not only the timestamp, but there was no fire. You see a flash up at the area where this tower is located, and then you see a fire start at the base of the tower. And that's all part of putting it together as to understanding what this fire did, how it did it, and where it did it from. So there's a lot of reports out. Everybody's got opinions how this fire started or what the reasoning was for it. There's something that we use that indicates faults on transmission lines. There's different services that provide that for us, but people can capture that data. A lot of times the utility will provide it, especially if the utility is involved in a fire. California requires them to provide it to the California Public Utilities Commission. They have to actually fill out a report form that indicates their equipment was involved in a fire. It is unknown at this time what the fire's origin was or why it started, but they're required to fill that out and submit it. So we can get a lot of data from that. One of the other things is called Whisker Labs. This is a new product that is in homes that will measure the electrical current inside of a house. And if there's a fluctuation or a surge, it reports that data back to basically a server, and they're able to track it at the lab based on what each device is doing at each home. So it's not something that's supported by the utility. It's a completely independent service. And they gave a lot of great information regarding where their devices indicated there were interruptions, where there were faults, and then they're able to provide that to the experts, the people who need that information. So one of the things that was done on this one is there was some heavy duty investigations on the tower itself, trying to understand how that tower became energized. Is there evidence of the energy of the arc event, if it was an arc event? I know there were multiple theories put forward. I think Southern Cal Edison had a theory that there were homeless people that may have been in the area. And I'm pretty sure that was disproven. But again, we're just talking about a bunch of different theories. One of the things I did when that video from the ARCO came out is I mapped it. Since it was dark when the video took place, there were certain indicators or landmarks that were in the video that I was able to identify. I then went to a Google Earth program, found those landmarks, and then plotted out what was in line with those landmarks, straight lining it all the way to where the flash was seen, and it marked right out to a tower on the side of the hill. And then we just went from there looking at different things. And I should say the investigation went from there because other people did exactly what I did. They plotted that out. They saw where it started from. They went and looked at the different items up on the hill and then have gone forward from there. There's been a massive evidence recovery from that hillside where they actually removed that entire tower and took it down, and it is in evidence now. And they're going to be, or they may have already looked at it with the geeky guys, the engineers, the scientists, the guys that have a lot of initials after their names. They'll do metallurgical exams on the tower, the wires, the conductors, the insulators, basically everything that is around there, and try to understand where that energy came from, how it started the fire. Did it drop molten metal down to the grass below? Were there raptor or bird's nest in the area that maybe arced out and it started the fire? Or did a wire just drop to the ground? So a lot of different things are going to be looked at. The one thing as a fire investigator we do is we come into a fire scene with every possible ignition scenario, and then we rule every one of them out. When we're left with one of them, that becomes the cause of the fire. If we have multiple scenarios or theories that we can't rule out, then it's an undetermined fire because we can't say it was discarded smoking material or it was fireworks. If we can't say exactly what it was, the fire is an undetermined fire because we don't know which one of those it was, so we can't make the call. In this case, the reason they're collecting all of this evidence is because, one, there's huge subrogation potential, meaning the insurance companies want to get their money back. There's loss of life, so there's lawsuits that will be against potentially whoever's responsible. And so there's a lot of money riding on this. I mean, $10 billion, and they're going to turn over everything they can to try to figure out what happened. So right now, as this fire sits, it's still an undetermined fire because there's multiple things being looked at. There is further investigation that needs to be done. All of the witness statements and video collection has been taken care of. One thing that I'll say is us as private fire investigators, we're a different entity than the fire department or the state. We look at things, I don't want to say differently, but we don't rely on the fire department's report to give us our findings. We do our own independent thing. And I'll say there have been multiple times where I've differed from the fire department in a finding. We go a little bit deeper. We have a lot more resources than typical fire departments do, but we also have the engineers that we can tap into. That is a little bit more challenging for your local agencies. We do not rely on the fire department. We don't read their reports. And I usually do not talk to a fire investigator until I've gone to the scene, did my investigation, and then I'll call a fire investigator for the city that I'm working in or whoever and ask them, do you have any evidence that you collected? Am I not seeing something that maybe you saw? And then we talk about it. Most of the time, the guys are really good about doing kind of a follow-up with them, and they tell me what they saw. I tell them what I saw, and then we just kind of leave it or continue down the path. So there's a lot more to this fire. This is just kind of a quick synopsis. And the one thing I'll say is between this one and the Palisades, with them having happened at almost the same time, 10 hours apart, something like that, the resources that are in the LA area, you can't match them anywhere in the world. Those guys down there have so many different resources they can tap into between the air attack assets, the number of fire engines and personnel they have down there. It's unmatched. They were maxed out because it takes time to get resources into an area. A lot of times the county or the city that's having the event will put out a call to grab resources from other parts of the state. It takes time for those resources to show up. That's why the Altadena fire, Eaton fire, and the Palisades fire took a while to control. Not only was it getting resources there, but the wind kicked up so strong there were no air resources that could be used. The wind was too strong, so they all got grounded. But what the plan is for these podcasts are to understand the fire, why the fire did what it did, and hopefully talk to some of the people who were involved in it and to get a feel of the confusion that takes place, the difficulty that happens when a fire is happening. It's absolute chaos. And for these fire guys to be trying to get in when everybody's trying to get out is a task that is unimaginable. But then the firefighters are trying to save lives first. So it's hard to try to stop a fire when you're still evacuating people. And we're going to get a feel for all of that. So that's it. We're done with this portion of it. We'll leave it hanging just a little bit in the hopes that very soon we'll have the interview with one of the victims down there, and that will kind of tie this together. We'll already have the background done. So thank you for listening. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you like it, hit a like at the bottom, subscribe. Remember, be fire safe. Check your smoke alarms. Thank you.